Some inmates will do anything to escape, risking everything to be free. But what happens when their plan fails? From an escape that ended in a fatal bar fight to a prisoner drowning while on the run. These are the shocking stories of inmates who tried to escape before facing capital punishment. Martin E. Garul's story is one of struggle, choices, and a desperate attempt at freedom. Raised by his father and grandmother in Corpus Christi, Texas, he went through tough times early on, including losing his mother before his first birthday. He attended W.B. Ray High School and later worked at the Corpus Christi State School, assisting individuals with intellectual disabilities. His girlfriend, Melissa Smith, was employed at the local U&I restaurant. In October 1992, Martin entered the U&I restaurant late at night, where co-owner Mike Piperis and employee Anthony Staten lost their lives. He claimed self-defense, saying Piperis had called him in to discuss tax evasion accusations and then came at him, attempting to strike. But investigators found holes in his story. There's no logical reason for Mike Piperis to summon Garul to discuss tax evasion accusations when Garul didn't even work at the U&I restaurant. His girlfriend did. Staten was found seated, shot in the back of the head, suggesting he was targeted without provocation. Piperis was discovered kneeling in front of an open safe, also shot in the back of the head, indicating he was likely unaware of the impending attack. Adding to the suspicion, girlfriend Melissa Smith recently fired from the restaurant, raising the possibility of a planned theft. His history of financial fraud and theft only deepened investigators' doubts. In July 1993, Martin was convicted and given the harshest penalty, while Smith received a 25-year sentence. He was held at the Ellis Unit in Walker County, Texas, the facility designated for those on death row. He was chosen for the Work Capable program, which permitted limited supervised movement outside his cell. However, his appeal was denied a year before what became one of the most infamous prison break attempts in Texas history. On Thanksgiving night in 1998, Martin and 6 other men planned a detailed escape from the Ellis Unit. They hid in a recreation room during dinner, made their beds look occupied, and darkened their uniforms to blend into the night. Once lockdown began, they broke through a door leading to the recreational yard, cut through a fence, and reached the main prison yard. From there, they climbed onto a roof and waited for complete darkness. Just past midnight they moved, but the guards spotted them. Gunfire erupted. 6 men froze and surrendered. But not Martin. He sprinted across the yard, dodging bullets, scaling one barbed wire fence, then another. And then, he was gone, swallowed by the night. What was going through his mind in those final moments of freedom? The search for Martin was massive. Over 500 officers, along with dogs, boats, and helicopters, scoured the area. 7 days later, 2 fishermen found his body in a tributary of the Trinity River near Huntsville. He had wrapped himself in layers of clothing and used cardboard to protect himself from the barbed wire during his escape. An autopsy found a gunshot wound in his back, but drowning was determined to be the cause. This suggests he tried to cross the river to escape tracking dogs, but didn't make it. Martin's escape led to major security changes. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice relocated individuals facing the most serious sentences to the more secure Terrell Unit, now the Allen B. Polunsky Unit, in March 1999. The Work Capable program was also shut down for good. Could the escape have been avoided if stricter measures were already in place? But the next story, it reveals just how terrifying things can get when 2 notorious figures are trapped behind bars together. James Emery Pastor and Stephen Albert McCoy are 2 individuals known for their involvement in serious unlawful actions in Texas during the early 1980s. James Emery Pastor, born in 1945 in Hamilton County, Ohio, led a troubled life. In October 1980, Pastor, along with two accomplices, agreed to carry out a plan targeting 38-year-old Robert Edward Howard in Houston. Robert's ex-wife and her new partner wanted him gone from their lives, and Pastor was promised $1,000 and a motorcycle to complete the task. On October 25, 1980, the group trailed Howard to a nightclub, deliberately damaged his vehicle's tires, and waited. When Howard returned to his truck, Pastor quietly approached him and caused his untimely demise. The trio then quickly left the scene. In November 1980, the same group struck again. This time, 27-year-old Diana Trevino Oliver was their target. They abducted Diana and took her to a secluded area. There, she suffered severe harm, and eventually one of the group members was responsible for ending her life. But their spree didn't end there. On New Year's Eve, they came across 18-year-old Cynthia Darlene Johnson, stranded by the roadside. They lured her into their car and took her to an abandoned warehouse. What she endured inside those walls was beyond comprehension. When one of them attempted to silence her but failed, Pastor took over. With chilling precision, he ensured she would never breathe again, driving a nail up her nose to confirm the job was done. By 1982, Pastor was already behind bars in an Alabama facility, serving multiple long sentences for unrelated crimes. But his past was catching up to him. Houston authorities had connected him to the passing of Robert Edward Howard, and in June 1983, even from behind prison walls, he was formally charged. During questioning, Pastor admitted his role, a confession that would later become a key piece of evidence in court. Just months later, he stood before a judge, was convicted, and received the death sentence. Stephen Albert McCoy, born in 1948 in Harris County, Texas, had a similar background. Initially involved in burglary, McCoy's record worsened when he became associated with the incidents involving Diana Oliver and Cynthia Johnson. At the time these events unfolded, McCoy was already serving a sentence for burglary. In April 1983, he was officially charged for his role in the brutal events. By July 26, 1984, the court held him accountable, and the very next day, he received the most severe punishment the law allowed. As the investigation unfolded, authorities made it clear Pastor and McCoy were deeply connected in a trail of violence. In April 1989, while both Pastor and McCoy were confined in a high-security unit designed for those with the most severe penalties, they hatched a plan to break free, a plan that looked much like a scene from a movie. Their idea was to exploit the facility's ventilation system as a hidden exit. Over days of careful observation, they noted details of the building's layout and the schedule of guard rotations. The plan began when the two managed to access an air vent in their cell block. Working quietly and using makeshift tools fashioned from everyday items available in their environment, they removed the vent cover. Crawling through the cramped space, Pastor and McCoy moved slowly. The vent led them to a heavy-duty exhaust fan, which blocked further passage. With great care, they used a rudimentary saw to carefully cut through the metal fan blades. This route, rarely frequented by staff, seemed to offer a way out. However, the corridor twisted unexpectedly, with sharp bends. Unbeknownst to them, a routine check by the facility's security team had picked up on irregularities near the vent. A guard, following up on a minor disturbance, discovered evidence of tampering. The security team quickly traced the signs along the corridor. Eventually, Pastor and McCoy found themselves in a narrow section of the passage where there was no room to maneuver. With the corridor effectively blocked and their energy nearly spent, the pair became trapped. Faced with no other option, they were found by the responding guards and taken back to their cells without further incident. As we move to the next case, Linwood Briley's plan would show us just how far one might go, even when it seems like there's no way out. This is Linwood Briley, a key figure in a series of horrible incidents that shook Richmond, Virginia in the late 1970s. Born in 1954, Linwood, along with his younger brothers James and Anthony, became known for their unlawful acts. Their actions involved multiple instances of harm, theft, and aggression, leaving a lasting impact on those around them. Linwood's troubles with the law started early. In 1971, at just 16, he fired a shot from his bedroom window that tragically ended a neighbor's life. At first, people thought it was an accident, but it wasn't. This event set the stage for the path he and his brothers would take. Between March and October 1979, Linwood and his brothers went on a terrifying spree, taking at least 11 lives. Their victims ranged from a 5-year-old boy to a 79-year-old woman. Their actions were brutal, random, and showed no concern for anyone's life. Eventually, authorities caught up with the Briley brothers. In 1979, they were arrested and later found guilty. Linwood was sentenced to the most severe punishment and was placed at the Mecklenburg Correctional Center in Virginia, awaiting his fate. But Linwood wasn't willing to accept his sentence without a fight. On the night of May 31, 1984, Linwood and James Briley, determined to break free, led a daring escape that would go down as one of the most unbelievable in U.S. history. Along with 4 other individuals, they took control of the area where they were being held, overpowering guards and creating a chaotic situation. But this was more than just a simple escape. It was about control and fear. Linwood and James were willing to do whatever it took to make sure no one stood in their way. They grabbed bottles of rubbing alcohol, planning to set a trap that would make the guards think twice about interfering. Just as they were about to act, another individual, Willie Lloyd Turner, stepped in and blocked James, preventing something far worse from happening. Meanwhile, Linwood attempted to target a female nurse caught in the situation. The 6 individuals set their plan in motion. They took uniforms from the staff, disguised themselves, and even wrapped a television in a blanket to make it look like an explosive device, using it to intimidate those standing in their way. The bluff worked. The staff, believing the fake device was real, let them pass through the gates without stopping them. Their original plan was to escape into Canada, but things quickly fell apart. 2 of them, Lem Davis Tuggle Jr. and Willie Leroy Jones, made it as far as Vermont before law enforcement caught up with them and brought them back. Linwood and James, however, had other plans. They split off from the group and made their way to Philadelphia, where they hid at the home of their uncle, Johnny Lee Council. They must have believed they were safe, but the authorities were determined to find them. FBI agents monitored their uncle's phone, carefully tracking their movements. Then, on June 19th, just weeks after their escape, a heavily armed team of FBI agents and police surrounded the house. Linwood and James had no way out. They were taken into custody, their brief time outside the facility ending just as quickly as it began. Despite his brief escape, Linwood's fate remained unchanged. He was returned to his cell, and on October 12, 1984, his sentence was carried out as originally planned. This is Jermaine Cannon, a man whose life was defined by turbulent events, including a high-profile escape from custody. Born in 1972, much of his early years remain undocumented, but his adult life involved serious legal troubles. In 1990, he was found guilty of a severe attack on an 18-year-old woman, which led to a 15-year prison sentence. While serving time at the Walters Community Work Center in Oklahoma, Cannon saw an opportunity and took it. In January 1995, he escaped, vanishing into the night. His flight led him to Tulsa, where he crossed paths with 20-year-old Sharonda Clark, a mother of 2. What began as a chance meeting quickly turned into something more. Cannon moved in, and for a while, their relationship seemed steady. But behind closed doors, something was unraveling. Clark was found in her apartment, her body bearing multiple injuries. The details surrounding her death raised unsettling questions. Cannon insisted he acted in self-defense, claiming Clark had attacked him and the situation got out of control. But the crime told a different story, one of a brutal struggle that ended with devastating finality. After Clark's passing, Cannon fled once again, this time to Michigan. But freedom didn't last. Authorities caught up with him 2 days later, and by 1996, he stood before a jury. Despite his claims, the evidence was undeniable. He was convicted and sentenced to the harshest penalty under Oklahoma law. Cannon's case raises broader concerns about the criminal justice system, particularly when it comes to assessing risk. His escape not only led to another heartbreaking event, but also highlighted the dangers of prison work programs. After spending nearly 3 decades awaiting his final sentence, Cannon's appeals for clemency were denied. On July 20th, 2023, the state of Oklahoma proceeded with the ruling. Up next is the case of a trio whose bold breakout sent shockwaves across state lines. This is the case of Quentin Truehill, Kentrell Johnson, and Peter Hughes, 3 individuals whose escape set off a chain of events that left multiple communities on edge. In March 2010, Truehill, Johnson, and Hughes sat behind bars in Louisiana, each facing their own legal troubles. Truehill was serving a 30-year sentence for a violent crime. Johnson was awaiting trial for armed robbery while also serving time for a parole violation. Hughes was locked up for breaking into a home. 3 men, 3 different paths, but one shared goal: freedom. On March 30th, they made their move. With a stolen weapon, they overpowered a guard at the Avoyelles Parish Jail in Marksville, launching a daring escape that would trigger a massive, multi-state manhunt. For the next several days, they left a trail of crimes in their wake, committing multiple robberies as they traveled more than 1,000 miles across the country. But then, their path crossed with Vincent Binder, a Florida State University graduate student. Soon after, Binder vanished. His debit card surfaced at various locations. Was this just another robbery? Or had the fugitives escalated their crimes to something far worse? Authorities eventually traced the 3 men to Miami, where they were found at a budget inn on Northwest 27th Avenue. On April 13, 2010, a team of U.S. Marshals took them into custody, bringing an end to their time on the run. But the legal consequences were just beginning. Following their arrest, they faced multiple charges. The case gained national attention due to the nature of their escape and the events that followed. Peter Hughes accepted a plea deal and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Quentin Truehill and Kentrell Johnson were both convicted and originally sentenced to the most severe punishment allowed by law. However, in 2018, the Florida Supreme Court reduced Johnson's sentence to life without parole. This decision came after it was revealed that an agreement Johnson had made with the Tallahassee Police and the State Attorney's Office had not been honored during his prosecution in another jurisdiction. With their escape attempt leading to decades behind bars, it raises the question, was it worth it? This is Darnell Keith Washington, a man whose life has been marked by a series of serious offenses and multiple escape attempts. Born on March 21, 1988, in Los Angeles County, California, Washington's early life remains largely unknown. However, his adult years became notably turbulent, leading to his current incarceration. In August 2012, Washington was detained on charges of armed robbery and possession of stolen property. While waiting for his trial at the Glen Helen Rehabilitation Center in San Bernardino County, he had no intention of staying put. On August 28th, during a visit from his wife, Tanya Washington, he made his move. In a bold escape, He climbed a 10-foot fence and vanished from the facility. Following his escape, Washington, along with Tanya, went on a multi-state crime spree. Their activities included several break-ins, carjackings, and even an encounter with Los Angeles County Sheriff's Deputy John Marquez, who fortunately was not seriously harmed. The couple's actions eventually led to an event in Hercules, California, where Susie Coe, a retired schoolteacher, was tragically harmed. Washington was later convicted of causing her injuries during a home invasion and car theft. On October 5, 2012, authorities caught up with Washington and his wife in SeaTac, Washington. They were found with Coe's stolen vehicle, bringing their run to an end. But for Washington, the trouble was just beginning. He faced multiple serious charges, including first-degree offenses related to the attack on Coe, as well as robbery and carjacking. Yet even behind bars, he wasn't done trying to escape. While awaiting trial, he attempted another breakout. In September 2016, Washington was convicted for his involvement in Coe's injury. He was sentenced to the most severe penalty under California law. His wife, Tanya, accepted a plea deal, resulting in a 23-year prison sentence. The next case shows what happens when someone thinks they can control everything until it all falls apart. This is Derek Lynn Peterson, born in 1954. Before his involvement in the 1984 escape, Peterson had been convicted for his role in a 1982 incident during which he was accused of causing the passing of a grocery store accountant during a robbery in Hampton, Virginia. In May 1984, Peterson was one of 6 inmates at Virginia's Mecklenburg Correctional Center with one goal: escape. Teaming up with the Briley brothers, Lem Tuggle, Earl Clanton, and Willie Jones, he orchestrated a daring breakout that exploited weaknesses in prison security and the overconfidence of guards. They staged a bomb threat, stole guard uniforms, and tricked prison staff into opening both main gates at once, a major security failure. Dressed in riot helmets and stolen uniforms, they slipped into the night, vanishing from the facility. Once outside, the group split up. But freedom didn't last long. Peterson and Clanton were spotted in a laundromat in Warrenton, Virginia, still wearing stolen uniforms in an attempt to blend in. Just hours after escaping, they were caught and sent right back to prison. Their break had been audacious, but in the end, it changed nothing. All 6 were recaptured and returned to face their original sentences. For Peterson, that sentence was death. On August 22, 1991, he was executed in the electric chair,